I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. In this video, I want to show you how I placed the outlet. I'm not going to show you the wiring on that because it was in the corner and I was in the way. No way I was going to be able to stand the camera up over the top of me and work. So you just have to accept that I hooked it up correctly. And if I didn't, it's in the panel, no one will ever know. Didn't blow when I plugged it in, we're working. I also made an extension cord so I can reach from that outlet out to the center of the room. Now why an extension cord? Why not just run a power cord? Because I got a 24 by 24 foot building and I don't have walls every 10 feet so that I could push the welder up against it and run the stinger out into the middle of the room and have enough cord left to work with. So I want to be able to take that welder anywhere in this 24 by 24 foot area and work. So I'm going to make an extension cord. When I get that done, I'll be able to weld up the track and then I can put it up into the rafters. I got to move some lights. The two lights in the back are too low. They will run into the track as it goes across. So I need to raise those up, so I'm going to have to fabricate some mounts for them. And in the meantime, I'm going to just wire them up into the rafters so that I can work up there and not have them in the way. But, you know, you got to do it one way or the other. I'm going to clean the cobwebs out of this one because this is an old one. Used to hold a yard light. Well, it's got green paint on it and a little paint stuck to the back of it. But it's going to make a good enough extension cord in. What I want is I want to be able to use the whole floor, and to do that I could go two ways. I could put outlets everywhere and only use at most 2 or 3 of them at a time. I don't often use 2 tools at once unless it's something like the bandsaw where I can start a cut and walk over and do something else because I know the bandsaw is very restricted. It can't walk away. It has to feed by gravity. It's not requiring any observation unless something goes catastrophically wrong, in which case I probably couldn't stop it while it was running anyways, other than if I was standing right there wasting my time a whole lot during a long, tedious operation. So I decided that I would put outlets in the 4 corners of the room, and then I would put an extension cord that could reach. Now, I would like to put a bus drop in the center. I might end up doing that when I'm all done, so that I can just swing it over and not have to step over the thing, because I'm finding that having cords on the floor is becoming a real annoyance. Easy trip hazard. And when I was 20, when I fell, I usually caught myself without any major damage. And if I did happen to land, it was something I could heal from fairly quickly. Not always the case these days. So, having a bus drop down from the ceiling makes better sense than having to constantly watch where my feet are, knowing that if I make a mistake I will injure myself and not only have to spend a lot of time healing, which is a major loss because time cannot be replaced, but it'll be boring. I won't get to do what I want to do, which is the major issue for anything. I want to be able to do things and have them done in a reasonable fashion. So, I'm going to make an extension cord tonight that will let me handle 220 single phase wire for a 30 amp circuit. This is part of the wire that came with the radial arm saw. The radial arm saw is a fairly large machine, and it can do a lot of things. And when it was at USA Lumber over in Battle Creek, which is where Art, my friend, got it, they were going to scrap it, and he took it off their hands because they couldn't get it running. And then he's a great carpenter, but he's not a great electrician. So when he decided he was going to leave and go out east, he left. He was going to leave the radial arm saw behind, and he said, "Do you want it?" I said, "Sure." He said, "You'll have to come get it. I don't have a way to haul it." Well, I happened to have a trailer at the time, so I went up and got it and a 12-inch, no, excuse me, 14-inch circular or table saw. Been a long time ago, I've forgotten. And the radial arm saw needs a 30 amp circuit. So it was run with number 10 SJO cord, which is some pretty serious cord. But since I was working in the workshop over in Union City and had no plans of ever moving, you know, no need, I had everything there that I wanted. I cut the cord short. This is like, I don't know, 10, 12 feet long. And I cut it off so that I could run the wire and not have it strung all over the place, coiled up. But I didn't throw away the wire because, you know, number 10 SJO is not cheap. And it's also tough as nails. I'm hoping I'm cutting this long enough so I don't have to cut it again. But I can always cut a little more, jack it off, rather than make the cord shorter for no apparent reason. I will probably put a new cord on the old miller. Right now I'm running a dryer outlet on it, which works. It's a 4-wire outlet and it got a ground on it. The welder is mostly happy with it, but the cord is old. It was old when I got it off the dryer. And I think it's getting to the point where it's starting to get a little fragile. If it bends, it might crack. And having a 220 line with a 30 amp breaker on it that can ground out. Even though the breaker will trip it, sometimes they don't trip. Sometimes they just arc a little. Then they heat up. And when they heat up, it starts fires. Don't want that. Also, don't want it brushing up against something, like the case of the welder. So I go to plug it in, and I put my hand on top of the welder as a brace, and get a shock. Any single wire to ground from the power side, either the black or the red, is only going to be 110. 110 is not a fun thing. My dad, bless his heart, used to run hot. He would work on hot lines, and it didn't seem to bother him. Now, I imagine he was just very careful. He was a lot more experienced than I was. And I decided early on that I don't work hot unless I'm absolutely desperate. Now, in the case of a power panel, sometimes the wire is in the panel, but the panel main breaker is off. And that sounds safe, and it typically is, except the bus bars in the back are still hot. So I don't like working with a hot bus, but I've done it. Just because you can't shut off all the lights everywhere, just because you're changing a light bulb. Okay, let's get these stripped back. Losing a little hand strength. Not something I was looking forward to, but it happens. Okay, there's that. I like this screwdriver. It's a Yankee. And eyes used to be good enough to read that in this kind of light, but they're evidently not now. Doesn't have a part number that I can discern, but it's a nice wooden handled screwdriver. Some of you might wonder why I'm using a bell box. Well, a bell box is metal, so it doesn't crack when it's cold. And it doesn't have any knockouts. It's got these screws that I can screw in there and plug those holes. It's not like a handy box. It's got those little knockouts that you can push. Because if you have the knockouts, what can happen is you grab a hold of the extension cord and you're pulling on it. And I know we all do it. We're not supposed to, but we do. And you grip a hold of that box and you squeeze one of those little knockouts in. And it shorts out against something. Okay. I got that anchored. Nice wrap of tape around it. Why do I put tape around it? Well, because, you know, it's kind of like wearing a belt and suspenders. One breaks, the other one's protecting you. The wires are all insulated, and the box is grounded, so if it does short out, it should trip a breaker. But if it doesn't, I don't want to have a problem. There. Now I got to borrow these screws off the switch. Because for some reason, this receptacle didn't come with screws. They're usually in a little paper. They're usually in a little paper. They're usually in a little plastic package inside the box. And I may have lost them when I opened the box, because I opened the box a while ago. But in any case, I'll just borrow the screws off of this one. I have another box of replacement screws down in the basement. That's actually a drawer. They used to be in a box and I put them in the drawer so I could find them easier. But that stuff is down in the workshop in the basement, which is soon to be phased out. I keep saying that. It's only been nearly 2 years. But we're going to do what we do. Now, it would have been cool to have a rain-tight cover for this box, but I don't happen to have one. And I'm not likely to find one right away. So, I bought this at Menards. It's a nice metal outlet cover, and it will protect the box and the wiring, and everybody will be happy. At least I will be, because that's one of my goals. Try and remain happy doing what I'm doing. Reminds me of going to the carnival. Had these strung all over the place. Powering up the rides. Okay. Now that twist lock receptacle that I put in the bell box cost me 19 bucks. Not bad. I had a bell box, so I didn't have to buy that. That would have been another $6. And the cover was $2, give or take a penny or two. And by the time I put all that together, I got maybe 12 bucks if you count screws and fiddling and all the other stuff. About 12 bucks altogether in that outlet. Well, 19 plus 12 comes out to about 33. I wanted 49 for a female twist lock. And I said, 49? That's an awful lot of money. Especially when I'm used to buying them for 8-10 bucks. But it is a 4-wire female receptacle. And there you have them, and I don't. So if I wanted one, I had to pay that kind of money. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to put I'm going to put a handy box and a receptacle on the end. And so that's what I did. These are kind of fussy. But we'll make them work. Green, X, and Y. Okay, so this is the white wire. We'll put that one in first. There we go. There's the black wire, goes into X, and here's the ground wire, which is probably going to be a toughie just because it's the last one. There, all four wires in there nice and snug. Now, there, nice and solid, strongly anchored. Thing I like about twist locks. Thing I like about twist locks is the lock. They don't come out of there. It's quite a bit of pull to get that out. You're gonna really break something. There are better ones. There are some very massive ones that go together and lock with a collar and a nut that they don't come apart. We use those at United Technologies for all the welders because in a large plant, when you're dragging stuff all over the place and you got a 400 amp welder on a cart and you're pulling it, it's awful easy to pull it, not realizing you got the cord caught on something. And the 400 amp welder had a rather massive amount of current going through the cord, so when you pulled that open, it was a big boom and people got scared. Possibility of somebody getting hurt, so we put on some really massive pieces of equipment. Also, these, you can bend the prongs if you drop them on the floor, fling them around, do things. That big aluminum die-cast plug, which locked together, was watertight and just a much better one than this. But they cost, well, back in the day, they would have cost about what this costs now. But they were very expensive. Okay, now we got that going. Next thing to do is just test it. Once again, I got to test the welder to make sure everything's going to work. Well, no boom. That's always a good sign. Had that happen to me one time. Made me very cautious. All right, acid test, last place to go boom. No boom. Well, now I have a welder that has an extension cord on it. I can reach halfway across the room. I'm out here welding, I'm not back in the corner trying to do everything with the welder sitting real close to the job and trying to do everything in a tight space. Especially since I've got this huge room. I mean, it's 24 by 24. That's plenty big enough for a workshop. I just got junk piled in it. Nothing flammable. That's good. And I can stand here, the light goes onto the part. Drop that down on the floor, it's out of the way. Connect the ground strap. Pick up the stinger. Turn on the power. The welder is working. Turn up the wire speed a little bit. I'm going too slow. Okay, now we're getting a weld. Not perfect, but acceptable. Yep, okay. Been a long, hard road, but I got a welder. I've got a weld bench. Got to clear off the junk off of it. Should be able to weld it quite easily now. I'm gonna have to do some run just to make sure I got this right. If you have any suggestions for new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.
This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the U.S. or 16 in the European Union without the express written permission of the parents or the legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.